I just want to say a huge thank you to Pathwater, one of the sponsors of Unbound Living. These are water bottles that I do not go anywhere without. I constantly refill it, reuse it. I drop salt in it. It's one of the best things that I've ever come across. If you have not tried Pathwater, you need to. Well, Miss Jenn.
Hello.
Welcome to Unbound Living.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
So fun. I'm glad we made this work.
No, it's been a while. You and I have been following each other, trying to get you in here.
Yes.
You're splitting your time between cities and stuff.
I am. I don't know how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I want to get into that.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Yeah, I'll tell you why I come to Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear about that, number one. But I've watched. I know kind of the story. I know several people out there know your story, but I want to get into this and I want to break some of this stuff down.
Okay, perfect.
And I want to break and unravel some of these other things and recent episodes that you've had. I know you talk about dating. Yesterday I was listening to your year-end wrap-up on dating and stuff like that.
So that's a
we're
joke.
Pulling it
That's
out.
ridiculous. All right,
No, but
it's so funny.
I mean, I love hearing stories. I love, everybody has a story, right?
For sure.
And most are very unconventional, right?
Mine is a very unique story, very weird.
Yes. So do me a favor and introduce yourself.
Okay.
And tell me a little bit about, first of all, why you started a podcast.
Yeah, so my name is Jenn. I started a podcast, I would say, I think it dropped October of 2023. It's called Gen Z Podcast, JENNZ, because it's just a joke. And I think part of I'm delusional about my age. I just joke about it, but I think that's part of my journey. I got married really young. I am divorced. I'm a single mom of two. I got married super young. And so I found myself divorced 3 years ago. And I felt like I didn't really date before I got married. And so it's an interesting journey. I always joke like I got let out in the streets like a stray cat and I'm like trying to find my way, or like I left the Amish farm. But it's been a very interesting, scary thing to get out there and be like, oh, like I never dated at all. And then like the dating scene's changed. I mean, they didn't have dating apps when, like before I got married. And so, I mean, maybe they did. They probably did.
Yeah,
I just wasn't on. Like, they probably did. But so I found myself divorced, and it was just a very weird transition where like very scary to like date. So I started the podcast as like a creative outlet. I'm a hairstylist in Las Vegas, and then I started the podcast as like an additional like creative outlet for me. And it's funny enough, I feel like I do more of the podcast in Austin, and then I like do hair in Vegas. But
so you're living a split life.
Yeah, I am.
Kind of cool.
It's cool. It's tough. It's gangster. Yeah, like whatever. So it's just I'm focusing on dating this season. The first season I focused on like interviewing just really cool people. I wanted to just like focus on that for this season, just because that's the phase of life I'm in. Kind of like interviewing dating coaches, talking about bad dating stories, just like trying to navigate the absurdity and beauty of all of it. Yeah.
Excellent. So you said you got married at a young age. What prompted that? Were you in an environment that was kind of like the thing to do?
For sure. Yeah.
So, I know this answer already.
Right.
I'm
Let's tell the
making you
people.
unravel it.
I grew up Mormon. I was very, I followed it to a T. Like,
Okay, hold on.
Yes.
Have you seen the new reality show?
The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives?
Yes.
No, but I will tell you what's so funny is I was actually at a country bar like a month ago, and there were these drunk girls. They were so wasted, and they thought I was someone on it. They were so wasted. So they like were like pointing. They're like, "That's her. That's her." And so then I was like,
Yeah.
like I think it's just the hair. I look like a Utah. But yeah, it was so funny. I have not watched it.
Okay.
I do hair, so like all my clients have told me everything about it, so I don't need to watch it. My thing is like, it's a little triggering the way that those women live. If I would have known that was an option to do whatever the hell you wanted, cool. I probably would have stayed in. Like that, they're just doing whatever they want. And I felt like, I felt like it was very much like, it's not a buffet. Like someone used to tell me like, it's not a buffet. And I'm like, well, it kind of has to be if you want people to stay. But it was just so black or white, like how I was raised. And so it's like, and I was always just a little bit of a rebel. But the crazy thing is I've always had a rebellious spirit, and I'll always push against the grain. But I'm also deeply like ingrained with it, where I cared a lot about what people thought. So I actually never really, I didn't party, I didn't drink, I didn't have sex. Like I didn't do any of that as like a kid or like teenager, even in my like early, like 18 to 20, I never did any of that. But it's funny because I do have a rebellious spirit, and I always like pushed against it, but I always followed it.
Yep. So you never crossed the line type of deal, but
no,
you just got
I like followed it. Yeah. I'd just be like, I guess I was rebellious in the sense that like they kind of, women are supposed to stay home and raise kids. And I really appreciate, I understand that, like now being older. But I was like, how dare you? Like, because I'm a woman, like you're going to tell me that. And so I pushed very heavily against that. Like I made sure like I had my career. I always wanted to have that. And so I kind of pushed that way. Like anytime they were like, I remember like as a teenager, they'd have like homemaking classes. And I was like, ugh, like, ew, like, no.
Now, do you think a lot of that came up just from the environment that you grew up in? And that's what kind of gave you that thought process? Like you were, you said you do have a rebellious edge, but do you think if you would have been brought up in a different environment that you still would have had that thought?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think I just push against, I don't want to be pushed into a box. And so anyone that's going to like put me into a box, like I have a little bit of fire. I'm actually like very easygoing and very chill and just fun and light, but I do have like fire. And so it doesn't come out often. It comes out when it needs to, but then it's like a little too fiery. But yeah, I think anyone that's going to try to put me or label me into one thing, I think I will naturally like push against that.
It's called passion.
Okay, yeah. So I have passion.
It just sounds better,
right.
Fiery sounds.
Right,
angry
right.
Sometimes to just go, it's just passion.
Right,
yeah. I'm passionate about certain things.
But to go back to what you said, I just felt like, you were raised like that's what you do. It's kind of a culture thing. Like everyone's like, was it arranged? No, it wasn't arranged marriage, but it's just so much religious pressure to like get married. You don't live with them. You're not supposed to have sex before marriage.
And it forced you in that box.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I've talked a lot. My parents are really great. They've been really great with me not being a part of the church anymore. They're still very active. But I was telling my mom, like, I just felt like I didn't have informed consent in the temple. They don't tell you really, they prep you, but it's not like, it's not, I'm sorry. Like, and that might offend people. It's not, they don't tell you what goes on in the temple. And so I was like, I didn't have informed consent. And I said, my mom's like, well, you didn't, I think it was shocking for her that I got a divorce. One, because I never talked shit about my ex. And I don't think that's appropriate anyways, it's not.
I agree.
Yeah, it did come as a shock, but it was like, that's just because I didn't air out any dirty laundry. I didn't talk about it to people.
It's the respect thing.
Right,
because it may not have worked and you may have felt like you were in a box or something like that, it doesn't mean that.
But she was just kind of like, I think the divorce was harder for them than me leaving my church. And I left with my ex before we got divorced.
Okay.
So we were non-practicing, which I'm actually really grateful for because I feel like that dynamic would be really tough. But I was like telling my mom, I was like, of course hello? Like, you guys are so shocked that I'm divorced, but like I got married as a kid. Yeah. And she was like, and I'm like, I couldn't even lived with him. She's like, well, yes, you could have. And I'm like, or, even not getting married in the temple. She's like, well, yeah, you could. And I'm like, no, because it was social suicide. Yeah. At that time, I think it's lenient now. Like, of course, like the real secret lives of Mormon wives. But back then, like, no, like it would be like, I would have been shamed. I would have been talked about. I would have been gossiped, which now at my age, I'm like, okay, cool, do it. I mean, I got a divorce. They definitely did that. So,
well, and at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And if you're brought up a certain way with only certain choices or what you feel those certain choices are, what else do you pick from?
Right, right. So yeah, it was just a lot of pressure. But honestly, I ended up picking a really great guy. Like, we just are so different. We just grew apart, but he's a good dad and, a decent guy. I mean, the last year he's made some interesting choices that have affected me deeply, but overall he's a good dad. He was a good guy. Like nobody did anything wrong. It's just, I think we came to well, honestly, like when we left our religion is kind of where we had to start deconstructing our life. I think right when I first left my religion, I had it harder than him. I was like, why are you not like upset? It felt like a death to me. Like everything I've ever known or believed in. Now I'm like, that's false. It was really hard for me. So like, it was interesting because I feel like we both kind of went at it at different times. But like when I first left, I mean, it was like a death. It was devastating. I was having a really hard time. But in deconstructing, I was like, holy shit. Like, I think we did things for other people and maybe not for us. And maybe our paths need to go separately. Like, do we love each other enough to allow that growth?
Yeah.
So that's kind of
well, and it's kind of funny. We can, get into theoretical type of stuff. I'm a Christian. I grew up Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
I had, I'm Italian. So as I got older, there's a lot of things that I did not agree with the Roman Catholic Church, right? I'm a Christian, but I also think that religion is one of the easiest ways to control somebody.
Yeah.
And the way you control people is you scare the shit out of them.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And that, when you look at a lot of these, most religions stem from similar starts, right? You're supposed to be kind to everybody, blah, 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 blah. And you have basic things that you're supposed to do, but each one's a little bit different, right? I'm a firm believer that God is everywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's, it's wild to me that the Catholic Church unfortunately has controlled and twisted some things that aren't agreeable with most other religions.
Right.
And you kind of look at it and you go, well, why is that?
Right.
One year, my wife and I went to the Vatican.
Okay,
we were there,
I've
and I was super stoked.
Yeah.
And within 5 minutes, I was disgusted.
Yeah. Was it just the energy, or was it the history of it?
Well, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But as you walk through, you're in the tour and everything, and you're looking around and you're seeing, solid gold menorahs and solid gold this, and you look at this and you go, this is supposed to go to the people.
Right.
And at what rate is a gold candlestick or a gold crucifix, like solid gold, going back to your people.
Right. Yeah.
The Bible even says, look under any rock and I will be there.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some of my most spiritual experiences in nature, in yoga. I've even been going to, religion. I don't know really where I stand. I feel like I'm very spiritual. I have a deep relationship with God. But I have been taking my kids to a Christian church in Las Vegas, and it's interesting. It's just so different from what I'm used to. But when it's like that rock band kind of like, who knew? I like to rock out to Jesus music.
Yeah.
Like but I feel really good when I'm there. And that's just I just kind of move with where do I feel joy and like feel it in my soul. And that's where I need to be.
Well, and that's energy.
It's energy.
Right.
And me in every aspect, I'm not logical in any sense. I move through energy. So like whether it's relationships, someone was like, what are you looking for in a guy? And I was like, I have a couple things, obviously, like I want to feel safe and secure, but it's an energy thing. It's, do I immediately feel at ease with you, or is my body on edge? And there's a lot of times where my body's on edge. Yeah. And I'm like, why? I don't even, know this person.
That's energy.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to your point, being in nature.
Yeah. Like you can find
grounding.
God. Yes.
There's something to a lot of that, to frequencies and everything else. There's a reason why, I truly believe that most instruments and, organs are no longer used in church, or not as much as they used to be, especially in Catholic churches. And most of the bells, unless you go overseas, were destroyed and things like that, because that's frequency and those are sounds that can heal. Right. You know, so I think a lot of those things have been taken away from us. And it's, you and I can go down a whole rabbit hole on pharmaceutical companies and drugs and you know, natural cures and this, that, and the other. Unfortunately, we are a society that is controlled by everything around us. Religion, government. We're always pitted against one another. Why do we have to be different? How different really are we? You know. And we're definitely all stronger together than we are separated. However, you're easier to control if you're separated. So when you look at all of those things and kind of look at the likenesses or the things that are common between those, and you stand back and you look, and most of it's power, you know, and that's sad, right? Because it keeps certain people that may have great relationships apart for reasons that they don't even necessarily understand. And that's why, you know, as I've gotten older, I've started to look at and study just different religions and pull things from different ones. And, you know, truly have a journey in what God actually is and how that feels to me. Right. Because God's supposed to be a personal relationship. It's not a relationship that is these 20 things. Only these 20 things.
And I want to say, like, when I was leaving my religion, you know, it's interesting, like, it's going back to the fear. My whole life I was told if you leave the church, you lose everything, which is actually really funny because I ended up showing... I left the church and I got divorced. So from the outside, they're like, look, see guys, here's this example. They got divorced and they left the church. But there's a reason for that. And I think it's because I wasn't really taught to listen to my intuition. I was kind of told, like, follow God's plan, blah, blah. But I also deeply believe that I'm a co-creator with God. And so, yeah, it was just really interesting. And I was just very fearful of that. But they say, you know, like, oh, the people that leave, like, they just don't want to follow the command. Like, they don't want to do any of that. I still don't drink alcohol. I'm not out partying. I didn't leave the church to go out and party and do all the things. I left the church because my soul was screaming that this isn't fitting for me. And that's devastating because that's like, wait, hold up. I'm not like, I think one of the prophets or whatever said that there were lazy learners if we leave. And I was like, it's so devastating because anyone who has any doubts, they say, like, faith over, like, I can't remember, like, faith over fear, like, go for your faith before you question your doubts. But it's like, it's devastating when you've given everything to something and then your intuition saying this isn't for you. And you're like, wait, what? Like, no, it has to be. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? And so it's that fear of, like, what if it's not for me? And then, you know, all the scary things that, like, well, if you leave, like, you lose your family and you do all this and blah, 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 blah. And it's a lot. And so, yeah, I just, you know, for a lot of people, they probably leave because they don't really want to, like, they want to do different things. But for me, it just genuinely, there's obviously fundamental things that I have serious problems with. And I was also told a very different story than the actual facts. But I didn't leave because I was a lazy learner. Like, it's actually devastating for people to leave a high demand religion. It's not easy. It's a death. I mourned it. It was horrible. So but it's that fear. It's like, you know.
Yeah. And you had brought up intuition. And now, in using that term, what do you think intuition actually is to you?
I think it's being so connected to your body. And it's funny because I actually did some therapy last year it's called EMDR, if you've ever heard about it. I did EMDR and the girl was like, you are not in your body. And I'm like, I honestly think that is from my upbringing because I was kind of not taught to ground myself or be in my body or listen to this. It was more of like, listen to this. And so, yeah, I was deeply disconnected from my body. And I think the intuition for me is being so grounded in who I am and connected to my body and spirit that, like, I can discern. And, you know, it's a gift.
I think that's how God talks to you.
For sure.
Is intuition.
For sure.
Everybody's built different. And if we were the same, we would be boring. But that has to be that link to you.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, it's kind of those things sometimes when you're not listening that you hear a lot of times. Is that. Yeah. And I'm a firm believer in that. However, if you have all this minutia and everything else going on in life, you don't hear that. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times
and distractions. Yep.
Yes. And a lot of times it's being still and listening to those things, you know, and
that's why yoga, meditation,
Have you ever thought, you know, years ago, that stuff was really frowned upon? Yeah. In religion, they thought it was evil. Is it?
So the funny thing is when I was devout, I was going to see energy healers. And I've always that is where my soul connects. And so I was already kind of doing things that, like, probably weren't
accepted.
Right, for sure. And I was doing that while I was still very very active. And I've always just resonated towards that. Like I probably would have been burned at the stake like back in the day, because I feel like I'm like a witchy woman.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was doing that stuff even when I was.
And looking back on that, now knowing what you know, do you understand probably why that was frowned upon?
Of course.
I know I do. 100%.
Well, yeah, because it's
you're thinking for yourself.
Correct.
And that's something, unfortunately, again, it goes back to, kind of what I said earlier is, unfortunately, religion has been used to control.
Right.
And it would be different if the words fell down from God in front of everybody. Right. But thousands and thousands of people have translated the Bible.
Right.
And even if you look at the St. James Bible.
Right.
And you knew who he was before he actually produced his version of the Bible.
Is that the King James Version?
Yeah, he was an evil man.
Yeah.
He was an evil man.
Yeah.
So why did he all of a sudden switch to this?
Right.
And he was a very controlling person. So
yeah. And I think too, like, I don't want to shit on like religion.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even like the Mormon church, like I definitely have my issues with it. But I love people that are in it. This is strictly just my journey, and all I would love, I mean, it doesn't matter, I guess, at the end of the day, what people think of me. But what I would love is just, this is my personal journey, and this is what works for me.
Yep.
And so, and like just.
I just love hearing different opinions and things like that. And you always take what you want and leave the rest. And unfortunately, there's not a society has made it so that's a little more difficult, right?
Right.
You and I politically even, see things a little bit different.
Totally. But I love that.
But we should be able to talk about those things, give each other a high five, and just be able to go on.
Well, exactly.
Those are things that are missing today. And I love that.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah.
Just because I love learning and I love hearing different
contrast.
opinions.
I'm even open, my friend Spencer, I always tell him about my bad dating stories, and he's like, Jen, it's time to start dating Republicans. And I was like, all right, fair, maybe fair. But like, I'm not even opposed to that, like I swing a different way, but like, I think contrast is good. I don't want to be in an echo chamber.
Yep. Well, and the thing that's sad is, I'm a big gun guy, big constitutionalist.
I also have a gun too.
But I think maybe where you may even lie is somewhere in the middle, where unfortunately that just doesn't
I'm
exist
definitely in the middle. Yep.
Just because in society in general, political, anything, to gain any type of attention, you have got to go so far one way or another just to get attention.
I know.
And I'll bring that back to something.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that, so there is no middle ground anymore.
Yeah.
However, one of the individuals that caught my eye, who is now a Texas not native, but resident, Tulsi Gabbard.
Okay, so I keep seeing Khalil. He just made a post about that. Okay, and then I was driving with Spencer, and I was like, who's this?
Yes.
Who is she?
And so have you looked her up at all? So she was a Democrat.
Okay.
And she switched to the Republican Party because, to her point, if she had to probably label herself even, or if I had to label her, I would have said she was a conservative Democrat. Like
I'm
Ronald
probably
Reagan.
that. I'm probably a conservative Democrat.
There used to be those out there.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan was a conservative Democrat.
Right.
And unfortunately, it started to go one way, and he was like, well, I guess I lean more Republican, and became a Republican. She did the same thing because that Democratic Party, unfortunately, is just so different than what it was, and there is no middle ground.
Yeah. But that's what I think is cool, is because I was a Republican. I actually switched.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
For sure. Yeah, I would
and
say.
Why? What do you think was the thing, just out of curiosity?
I mean, I don't want to get too into it because I might ruffle feathers.
I don't give a shit.
Here's my thing. Again, goes back to energy.
Yes.
I am not a fan of our president. I would have voted for a good Republican.
Okay.
I understand why people would want to vote Republican, especially with the economy. I get that. I'm very fiscally conservative. I just have major problems with his character and who he is as a person. And I feel evil energy.
Okay.
And so for me, I can't stand behind someone like that. But yeah, but I think that's what's so cool about life. Because who knows? Maybe I do date a Republican or whatever. Maybe I switch. But like, we're supposed to evolve, and different life experiences, and at different times in our life, like, it's just, yeah. So like I switched, you never know. Like, but I think it's good. Like, I think it's cool. Like that's what we're supposed to do is evolve.
Yeah.
And we're not supposed to be stuck in a box. Like for her, she switched. Like, that's great. Like that works for her, you know, like, so.
But it's just that mentality of the unfortunate, there seems not to be a middle anymore, right?
I think I think it is though. I think there's a lot of people that resonate with the middle.
Well, and I think that has definitely started over the past couple years.
Yeah.
For sure. Because I think that it's
just getting too extreme, and that's the problem.
And I think that's the position that most people have taken is, you know, it doesn't matter, red, blue, left, right.
Yeah.
It's just so far out that those people are starting just to go, wait a second, and they're coming closer together to that middle. And I
just don't think we hear about it a lot, but I really think people resonate with the middle.
Well, and the thing, even going back to a media thing, what would be, you know, why would they want to present that more people are in the middle versus left and right?
Because you're right, because you get attention when you're extreme.
Well, and on top of that, they don't want us coming together. If they were giving a message that the U.S. is coming together as one body, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And then what does that do? That creates the snowball effect. And it comes even more and more and more.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with everything to have a common thing that you want what's best. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know, what someone does in their personal life and everything else, just don't let it affect others. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
You know, there's several things that I'm liberal on. I think that they should legalize marijuana and just tax it.
For sure.
Same thing with mushrooms.
So is that not illegal? Because it's legal in Vegas.
It's legal in Vegas by state, but
by
federal
state,
wise, you know,
still,
and
for sure.
And that's an industry that's insane. I had a buddy that lived in Colorado Springs, and he would get his property taxes returned to him every year because they had such a revenue.
See, but
that's
marijuana.
The
weird. And this is going to become like very ignorant because, but they promised us in Nevada that some money from the weed industry would go to schools, and I don't think it did. And I don't know if there's some loophole because we are struggling in Nevada with our schools. It is a disaster. CCSD is a nightmare. They can't. I mean, we're losing. I mean, I think next year we've lost so many teachers in our elementary school, and we're gonna have 41 kids in a class. Marijuana is legal, and where is the money that they promise? So it's just, I don't know. There's weird loopholes, like,
you know, that's a good point. And I don't know that it's loopholes.
Yeah.
You know, I think some of the things people say, and a lot of people are very upset that Elon Musk is doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what's being uncovered, even from a federal standpoint, no matter what side you're on, you've got to be able to look at that and go, you did what with my money?
Yeah.
And so that's even falling back to the states. So if you have something, it could be anything, right, that the state controls, because marijuana is a state issue, right? Because again, federally, it's against the law. So the feds have nothing involved in it. And that's constitutional. And so that falls under different things as well. You know, certain types of gun laws, although those I think will be, you know, nationwide, but there's things that the state should run. That's how the Constitution was built. The federal government has no business in state-related issues. And that's one of them. But if you're dumping millions and millions of dollars into a state and you see that your federal government is stealing your money, what do you think your state's doing to you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that will start coming out. But it's gotten easy. And I think a lot of that stuff has been happening for years, but we don't see it. But now it's easier to see because we have phones. And we have the internet and things like that. And I think it's just been going on for years, right? You know, and constitutionally, we're not supposed to be taxed. So that whole thing's real interesting. And again, it goes back to that take on, you cannot like Musk, or you cannot like, just look at what's being found out, right? Take the person away, take the whatever, and just look over here. Because at that rate, left or right, blue or red, you should be pissed that some of this money's going to where it was, or whatever, right? That should be, I think, staying home, just in general, and going to the American public versus any and everything else it's gone to. So that's a good question. Where is that money going? You know, but sad. Again, if something like that is legalized and it's taxed, just think of and it's regulated from the standpoint of a checks and balances of they know where the money's going.
Right.
That could be huge.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And
I
whenever.
do think it needs to be legalized, like here in Texas. Yeah, mushrooms and marijuana. It's
so think about, and then go back, okay? And they always say follow the money. Who would that really piss off if those two things became legal? It's a natural growing product. Who would it really piss off?
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical companies.
Yep.
So, I mean, mushrooms and psilocybin and stuff like that have been shown to repair brains.
100%.
PTSD and things of that nature.
I actually microdosed mushrooms while I was going through my separation.
I've got them in my freezer.
Really?
In my office.
Yeah, I did it for 4 months, and it wasn't that accessible. So like I had to, it was crazy. But I will say it was what should have been the hardest, most devastating time. It was hard, but I feel like I was able to get through that more level-headed. Like I felt like it helped my brain maybe bring a little bit more like dopamine. You know, I look back and I'm like, wow, that really did something for me. And I never went on like a drink. It was the smallest dose, but like every day it just helped me through that.
People ask me sometimes because, you know, and I don't do it on a regular basis, but I probably do it 2 or 3 times a week. And I do it in the morning with like a cup of coffee on an empty stomach. And people go, well, what does it feel like? And I'm like, I don't feel anything.
I don't feel anything.
However, I can go back at the end of the day and go, I'm a little ADD.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I can completely focus, accomplish task, and just kick the day in the teeth.
Right, yeah.
You know? And I look, that's what I feel.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Right.
And that's worth that to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, if you go back to Prohibition, when they outlawed alcohol, they also outlawed pot.
Interesting.
So if you go back and look, then they came back and legalized alcohol and
which is
pot is illegal.
So wild to me that it is an actual poison that's legal.
Yeah.
And natural plants are not.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
And then a lot of the marijuana ended up becoming snake oil.
Interesting.
Yeah. So and was bad and this and the other. Anything that grows out of the ground is something that was given from God.
I agree.
Period. You know, and you look at you know, over in Asia, how they look at mushrooms and a lot of that medicinal stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
It
Herbs.
makes sense.
Absolutely.
You know, but again, who's it going to piss off?
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical industry, who is the most profitable industry in the world, right?
Yeah, right.
So it blows my mind that you can have pharmaceutical companies that can slow a disease or slow an illness down, but they can't cure it.
Yeah. Yep.
How do you help me understand that?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So there's reasons.
Yeah.
So, and it's sad
Right.
at the end of the
I
day.
know.
And those are things I think as individuals versus being blue and red and left and right that we look at as a group and just go, why is this happening? And should we stand against this? And should we be a healthier America? And that's why I'm stoked with RFK.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what he's
Right.
looking at, you know. And at least personally with this administration, whether you like Trump or not, as an individual, what he has structured is incredible because he took the left and the right and he's brought them together to create something for the people.
Yeah.
You know, it was wild. I know one of the things that he had mentioned, which blew my mind. One of the things that he had brought up was trying to regulate the amount of interest that credit card companies could charge
Interesting.
you. And then the person he wanted to put in charge of that was Bernie Sanders. And I was like,
I love that.
Who?
I love that.
But in the same sense, right? I look at that
That's
and I go,
exactly what we need to be doing is having people.
Exactly.
You need people. It's an echo chamber is really scary.
yeah. And again,
everything.
And again, it goes back to if you took Trump's name off of him, and he was just a thought, right? Or he was anybody else, and he put this team together, I think he's building for the future and when he's gone for the people. And if you can get everybody together again, that's when we're our strongest. And the only way that you can do that is take people from both sides and make them work together, because that's going to force people to work together.
Right.
And they don't want to because there's an old, oligarchy that controls, and it's left and right. It's just, it is.
Yeah.
So it's going to be real
You need
interesting.
checks and balances, and that's what's important.
100%.
You need people on opposite
And
sides.
transparency.
Right.
And that's something we just have never really had.
Yeah.
We thought we had it, but we just haven't. I think it's kind of funny. Have you seen this whole Fort Knox thing? And then we'll change everything from politics.
But I'm like really, I don't enjoy politics.
No,
yeah. So no, I don't know.
You know, and I never did until probably, I don't know, the past 12 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just because I'm old now, because I'm over 50 or what, but it was just interesting seeing how things work. And I got involved, you know, my ex-wife's father was a lobbyist and a state rep. So I started paying attention to it a little bit more in the ins and outs and stuff like that. So it's really, you know, it's intriguing to me.
Yeah. I actually was really involved in politics when Mitt Romney ran. His first time, I did like a lot of grassroots campaigning in Nevada for him. But yeah, I don't know. And then I just, it's so, when you get so deep into it, it's just upsetting. It's things I can't control. And so I've kind of just stepped away from that. I mean, I could get really passionate about it. But I'm like, I need my energy to just be like chill and, you know.
And I think one of the reasons why us old folks lean into it a little bit more is because we're concerned about our future.
Correct. Yeah,
you know
for sure. I could see that. It's just different phases of life.
Yeah, and especially the debt.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want that left to our kids.
Right.
From a business standpoint, we do what we consider a legacy product. You know, we go in and we do a what I call micro communities. Like we'll go in and build 12 houses, sell 8, and keep 4. And those are rental properties for us and our investors for legacy wealth, for our kids, our grandkids, things like that. So in looking at that, you have to look at a broader spectrum. What can affect your goals in the legacy plan for your kids, grandkids, and stuff like that. So that's what's kind of forced me into looking at that.
I can see that,
Just because of taxes and, okay, now what do I have to do to find a loophole to shield my family from X or something like that. So, but yeah, that and guns.
Yeah. All right.
That's always a thing.
And so for me, like my thing, like right now in this current phase is I'm always fighting for underdogs.
Yeah.
So like I'm very passionate about gay rights, women's healthcare rights. So I feel like I'm very fiscally conservative, but I'm very socially liberal. And so that's kind of where I'm at in phase, but you never know, like catch me in 10 years. I might completely, you know,
I
change.
get it.
I think that's what it's good. It's good to evolve, you know?
No, and if you're not evolving and growing, that's where you're going to have issues.
Exactly.
No matter what. And again, you don't have to agree with everything, but you have to have enough courtesy and grace and just humility to be able to understand that again, you can talk and then, you know, high five and go on.
For sure. Yeah. That's how it should be.
Because at the end of the day, if people care for people, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So let's get back to your journey. So you spend most of your time in Vegas. So I'm assuming kids are there?
Kids are there. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. The whole Austin thing, this is how it came about. October of 2023, I launched my podcast. I was here for ACL with girlfriends. I had only been to Austin one other time with my ex-husband 2 years prior for ACL. Literally never in my mind went there thinking I should live in Texas. Like never. If you told me, I would have been like, what? So I went to ACL with girlfriends. I stayed like 2 extra days. I literally like got on the dating apps, which I'm very anti-dating app, but I was like, okay, whatever. And I went on this date with this guy. Cool dude, but like, I don't like whatever. Like, so we're on a paddleboard and he's paddling and I'm just having this like epiphany and spiritual experience. Like it was crazy. Like he's in the back, like I'm just like, I don't know, whatever. I'm doing my own thing. And I'm just like this overwhelming, and it's very woo-woo, like the way like it was so like, it made me want to cry. Like it was just so like, I was so happy. And I was like, and it just was like this download, you need to be in Austin. And I was like, I don't know a single human in Austin. That doesn't even make sense. So I was like, okay. But it was so profound that I called my ex-husband and I was like, hey, listen, I just had this experience. I know this sounds crazy. I feel like I need to be in Texas. And I'm like, would you be willing to move with the kids? Because here's the thing, like, he's a great dad. I'm not going to take my kids, you know, like.
You're a good person for that.
Right. Like, I'm not going to fight. Like, it sucks. I've really felt like very slighted by this whole situation, but he's a good dad. Like, I'm not going to take my kids. But so I just said, would you be willing to move? You know, I really feel like I need to be here. And he's like, listen, I'm open to having a conversation with you about it, but you need to go once a month for a year. I was like, okay. bet.
Deal.
Done.
Yeah.
Watch me.
Yeah.
Watch me.
Yeah.
So I did. And the first 2 months, I just went like, that's what, like, I will always follow where I'm guided, even if it doesn't make sense. So I was like, well, shit, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
So the first month I brought a girlfriend. It was my birthday. So I was like, let's go to Austin and celebrate my birthday and like figure it out. And then I was like, okay, I can't bring a friend the next month. I was like, I have to do this on my own. So I remember actually like walking around the lake, like crying. Like I didn't know anybody. I was so like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is insane. And then I got on Bumble BFF, which is the dating app for friends.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's cool.
I met all my girlfriends in Austin are from Bumble BFF.
Really?
The dating apps suck, but the friendship version is
It's awesome.
chef's kiss.
Yeah.
So like I got on there, I set up coffee dates. I met up a bunch of girls and I just started, and then I joined a running club. I freaking hate running. I do hot girl walks at home. I do not like to run, but I was like sacrificing for like, I need friends. I need people. And the cool thing about Austin is they're so nice. Like I just would go and be like, hey, I'm new. I don't know anyone. I need friends. And everyone was so nice. So that's where the thing came about. So after a year, I like talked to my ex-husband. I'm like, still love it.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, I got another job and I really love it and I don't want to move. And I was like,
That sucks.
Yay.
Yeah.
So I was like, for a long time, I felt like a victim. And I was like, but then I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'm just giving it to God at this point. I feel like my journey into Austin is not done. Maybe this year, my goal is to buy a property and Airbnb it out when I'm not there.
Yep.
I feel like I need to be here. But then, you know, when you think logistically, like, this is crazy. Like, I'll probably start doing hair here a little bit. And then, but maybe one day I'll wake up and be like, I don't feel it anymore. I don't feel this pull to Austin. And then I know that my journey is over, but I still feel this like pull.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just trying to do the best that I can with my circumstances.
Yep.
So people are like, why are you always here? And I'm like, I can't leave.
Not be here.
I can't not be here. Like my soul wants to be here, but like I can't fully be here.
Yeah.
But how I describe it is like, I was telling people, like, I died in Las Vegas. I was raised in Las Vegas. The version of me, like, epically died. Like, I was Mormon, I was married. That version doesn't exist. So it's like really hard to live in a place where your whole life was that version.
Yeah.
Trying to be your new version. And so that's why I was like, if I didn't have kids, I would have moved to Austin immediately. But so I'm doing the best that I can. So that's why I split time.
You know, and I'm sure you've seen this, but Austin entrepreneurially is unfreaking believable.
I love
right?
it. It's creatives.
So do you think that there would be a way, and I don't know, and we can, we're definitely going to do another couple of these. Okay. But from an entrepreneurial standpoint, just depending on how you split up your time and stuff like that with your husband, there's no reason that you can't do, you know, gigs here.
For sure.
Constantly. Because
absolutely.
we are at no shortage for ridiculous talent, and I can hook you up.
I would love that.
With people
any
that
connections.
are looking for quality people that own, like, you know, the girl that does this is kind of funny, but it's true. My wife touches my head and my barber touches my head. Those are the only two girls that touch my head.
But your barber's a girl? That's sick.
Hands
I love
down.
that.
And she was in film and everything else. So she had done makeup, blah, blah, blah. But she likes being a true barber for the sheer fact, and she does mainly men, but she does girls as well. But just because the training had to be so much more rigorous, I guess.
Men's grooming is so cool to me. Yeah.
But she's even got a spot where she's just trying to find someone.
Yeah.
That will work, right?
Right.
But anyway, there's a ton here, and I'm happy to introduce you. It's kind of like between hair and things like that and tattoos, we were at no shortage for very
And
good
the cool
people.
thing is my ex he was like, look, I will do any custody schedule you want. If you want to be 1 month in Austin, 1 month in Vegas, if you want to be 2 weeks. But I love being a mom too. So like I need to make sure like whatever I decide is good. So at this point, I have no idea what it looks like. I'm just giving it to God. I'm like, dude, Jesus, take the wheel. I don't really know. Like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but it will work out.
Yeah. And especially of all places that you chose, a place that you have a ton of options, because Austin's young, entrepreneurial. It's a healthy city.
Sure. I love it so much.
You know? And it's something wild that myself and a buddy were talking about just on a podcast the other day. We grew up in the bar industry.
Yeah.
So in our early 20s, that we worked in bars.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it was all about getting drunk, hooking up, and that was the lifestyle,
Yeah.
right? In Austin is completely changed. We didn't have run clubs.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
now we had gyms, but they were old school, like Gold's Gym,
Yeah.
World's Gym, and it was how you know, much steroids and how much can you lift.
Yeah.
That was the culture.
Right.
When 6th Street, when you could actually go down there, it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
Dirty Six.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was fun
Yeah.
for that time period. That doesn't even really exist.
No.
Not saying
Yeah.
that people don't go out and drink and party and stuff,
It's just different.
but that culture's not
Yeah.
the same as it was when we grew up.
Right.
And it was kind of sad even because you could go on different nights, you saw the exact same people. And it would be, you know, Wednesday night. We had
Yeah.
a place called Dallas Nightclub.
Yeah.
Everybody went to Dallas Nightclub, and it was called the Meat Market.
Right.
You went there to get drunk, dance, and hook up. That's
Yeah.
everybody knew. And then on Thursday night, you went to Dance Across Texas. And there was like different places that you would go, and they didn't have to be country bars. They could be the intermix. But you would sit back, and being behind the bar in that industry, you saw this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to personally leave the bar industry for about 6 months because of the amount I was drinking.
Yeah.
I don't think I was an alcoholic, but I do think I drank from boredom. We'd get there at 6 p.m., start opening, and immediately start drinking.
Right.
And not remember anything after
Yeah.
11 o'clock
Yeah.
or midnight.
Yeah.
Right? That's just how it
Right.
was. And I saw that, right?
Yeah.
And I saw the community that I was in, and I saw the exact same guys, the exact same girls that all hooked up together.
Yeah.
And to see it like in a fish tank, you look at it and you go, that's not the life
Yeah,
I want,
I
right?
know.
So I
Sure.
had to leave for
Yeah.
about 6 months, and I came
get
back
that.
in
Yeah.
and completely did it different. I didn't drink as much
Yeah.
and things like that, but I still saw that same crowd.
Right.
And even, you know, my wife and I had gone out, I don't know, dancing down south. We,
Yeah.
you know, we met in a country bar.
So fun.
We danced. She was a
Yeah.
dance instructor,
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff.
Fun.
But even when we went down to this country bar, I don't know, 10 years ago, we saw a lot of that same group
Yeah.
still there. And
Wow.
and it's, you see that you can just get sucked
Mm-hmm.
into those things. So having boys, we've got 3 boys. Our
Okay.
youngest is 19. They're all pretty healthy.
Yeah.
And it's especially our youngest, which gives me hope.
Yeah, for sure.
Or,
I
you
think
know,
it's changing. Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
And then you've
Yeah.
got, you know, kids here. Like, do you know Matt that's outside? And I know you're listening, Matt. He is one of the greatest kids I've
Yeah.
ever met. And that gives me true belief in our future.
Matt.
I know. He's a beast, you know,
Yeah.
entrepreneurial, God-fearing man, just good kid.
Yeah.
You know, everything's about health and wellness, how to help others.
Yeah.
That gives me hope.
Right. For sure.
Because we weren't putting that shit out there when I was that age.
It's definitely it's good.
know?
It's going in the right direction.
100%. So Austin is phenomenal for you to do
Yeah,
that. And
I
so
love Austin.
Any help that you need
Thank
with that,
you.
please
Thank
let me
you.
know. And I definitely want to do another episode because we didn't even crack. I've got like 30 questions
Okay.
to ask you
Yeah,
that I
we
didn't
can.
get into.
Well, I'll be back in 3 weeks, so we can
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it'll be fun. But I want to start getting into, you know, the continued journey that you're leading. You've often talked about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
We've had, you know, I've had several buddies that, you know,
Yeah.
including myself, that have dealt with certain things.
Yeah.
And I love sharing those things. 'Cause
Yeah.
people can take what they want and leave the rest.
Yeah.
And hopefully some of those journeys can
Right.
help other people at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, we can briefly. Yeah. A lot of really crazy things happen, like with
And I
my.
want to get into
Yeah,
some of
this
those
year
stories.
it was just
Yeah.
last year was not good for me. Yeah, I mean, my ex put me in some really, really bad positions.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really, you know, in fight or flight for a really long time. And I didn't realize how deeply like that affected me until probably like this last fall. And I was like, oh, I'm not okay. And I was dealing with a lot of depression, which, you know, I've always had a tendency to have anxiety and depression, but it's very situational. And I just felt like, I realized like trauma can cause chemical imbalances in your brain. I went through a lot of trauma last year. I mean, in general, I've gone through a lot of transformative, you could classify it as trauma, but like I legit went through like some trauma last year.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think it created like a chemical imbalance in my brain. And I was like really struggling, for the first couple of months, it was like I was just compartmentalizing, and then I was like, wow, I'm like not okay. So, I've really struggled with depression last year. And
was that, if I'm sorry for interrupting,
No.
but was that a point when you started trying mushrooms?
No,
No?
I
Okay.
actually haven't done any mushrooms
Okay.
since. So this was like 3 years ago, and I
Okay.
did it for 4 months, and
Yes,
I
ma'am.
microdosed. I would love to microdose again. I think it would really help.
Yeah.
But I haven't done it in years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, what's kind of funny is depression and just mental trauma is very similar to PTSD.
Well, yeah. And so I actually went and saw a psychologist or psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And I have PTSD.
100%. It comes in several different forms, right?
For sure,
And it
for
can't
sure.
be just like
Yeah.
anything else, can't
Yep.
be pigeonholed.
So that's kind of what she like diagnosed me with or whatever is, some PTSD. And so, I'm working on it. I just, like it's vulnerable to share, but I'm like, it's been hard.
Yeah. So, okay.
Gives you empathy though. Like
Yeah.
you can go deep with people.
Yeah.
Like you've been,
100%.
the lowest of lows.
When you feel at your lowest, what
Yeah.
helps you come out?
Just talking to people. I also really believe like my journey individually is like I was never on my own ever. So my growth journey, like my part of like, getting divorced and doing this is learning how to self-soothe and be my own savior and not be codependent on somebody else. So I do like, I will talk to friends, but I'm really trying to be able to sit with the uncomfortable feelings, and I'll just kind of sit with it and try to validate myself. Like, that's, of course you'd feel that way. Like, that's, it's okay to feel that way. Like, you've been through a lot, like that makes sense. So trying to just like validate myself, but also like seeking help through friends and talking it out and just saying, hey, I'm like really low today.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't do.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah.
good for you for doing that, because a lot of people won't do that. They won't reach out. I've got buddies that I've got real good friends that I can not talk to for a month or two, and we can pick up conversations immediately. And then I have friends that I talk to every single day, several times a day. And if something's off, I can sense it. I have a couple friends that we have these really weird connections, and it goes vice versa.
Right.
I can be in Nashville and I'll get a call going, "Hey, dude, you good?" For no reason.
Yep.
Or shoe on the other foot, where I'll pick up the phone and go, "You good, man?"
Yeah.
And he's like, wow, I cannot believe that, And so and it goes back to energy, right?
Intuition.
You can totally be completely apart, but
You feel
it's
it.
understanding and feeling that. And when that happens, to surround yourself with individuals that can feel that too.
For
'cause
sure.
They can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And to follow those like little nuggets or prompting.
And those little nudges, 100%.
You oughta,
So that's phenomenal that you have seen that, because I can't imagine the growth that you've gone through from being young, getting married very young, not knowing anything, and being placed in a box.
Yeah.
And then trying to break out of that box and learn everything that a lot of us probably learned in the early stages.
For sure.
You do so much growing in your teenage years, but I also think from like 18 to 24, 24 to 30 is huge.
For sure.
And then even 30 to 35, 36, you're still growing. And I think that you kind of get to where you're going to be.
For sure. Well, that's why I date younger, to be honest.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, again, I'm going to maybe evolve, but I also tried to date a guy that was my age, and he was a crazy person. So I would like solidify. Yeah. I have my own theories on like, that. I feel like, but I tend to date younger a lot. Actually, all I've dated is really younger because I'm experiencing things for the first time in dating. I have a very fresh perspective on dating. I'm not jaded. This is all very new to me. So it would be like, I'm yes, biologically I'm a little bit older, but like energetically and like what I'm experiencing is what someone would experience in their 20s.
Yeah. You're not seasoned.
And so I don't resonate with like guys my age. Like I just am like, our energies are not
Well, you're
but I think
experiencing the same thing probably at a same.
so people are like, oh, why like tease me about dating younger? And I'm
Yeah.
like, but you don't understand where I've come from
Yep.
and my journey and
Yep.
and where my mindset is at is like I'm experiencing things very fresh, what
Yep.
people would experience in their, mid to late 20s
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's why. And I
Makes
also
total
think
sense.
older guys are jaded.
Well, they can be. Older women sometimes can
sure.
be jaded too.
For sure.
And you have to look at
For
it in
sure. But I'm like, like I just think they're tired and jaded and they've been
Yeah.
in the dating scene too long. I don't know.
100%. No, exactly. But to your point, age is not the trigger, it's the experience that's
sure.
the trigger, right?
For sure. Age
You
is just
know?
a number, but it's an energy and like an experience.
Yeah.
And so that's why
you
I
could
date
learn
a
how
lot
to,
younger.
Yeah, you can learn how to fly a helicopter at 40 and at 20. But if you take that journey it's the same thing.
Exactly, yeah,
Right?
for sure,
So
for sure.
I totally get it. And
Yeah.
So you don't have to.
Yeah,
You don't
but
have
tease
to
me. That's why I'm like,
justify-
guys.
I ain't gonna tease you about it at all.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
do you, and I'm glad.
I'm just
that
a
you,
cougar, okay? I
Well,
love
that's
it.
okay,
Love it.
And I heard you say that on one of your shows, and you were going to have a cougarless time period or something like that as well, as you said.
Oh, I
but
said I was a reformed cougar.
Oh, yeah.
I'm over it.
you're over it.
Yeah.
Just go with what you know.
Yeah, nah, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I tried. I did try to date someone like age appropriate.
Yeah.
And it was a disaster.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? No. I'm
No.
going to date the younger, hotter guy.
Just go with where your heart leads you.
Whatever.
period,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Absolutely.
And again, we might evolve and I might get over that phase. Or
But
maybe
you
it
have
was
to
never a
learn in
phase,
that
Mom.
phase, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah,
like maybe.
exactly.
Who knows?
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I know
Thank
that
you so much.
have got to get out of
I got to
here.
catch a flight
Yes,
back to Vegas.
so-
But I'll be back in 3 weeks.
3 weeks. We got to set it up again. I want to go
Perfect.
through some of this stuff as well.
For sure.
You're welcome here. I know
you're so nice.
Spencer's
Thank you.
probably, have you worked out at any of the gyms?
Yeah, he takes me to
Okay.
the collective downtown.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
Have you hooked up with any of the girls or the groups there?
No.
We've got some ridiculously awesome groups,
Okay.
especially with the girls.
Okay,
here,
cool.
With the run clubs, with Matt.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very in tune to everything that's going
Okay.
on.
Okay, perfect.
And that's one of the things that I love about this gym is the connectivity.
I know.
They're and it's not cliquey.
Yeah.
At all.
Everyone's so nice. I go to the one downtown when I'm in
Yeah,
town.
absolutely. And let me know. I'm at
love
both,
it.
and our office is right here, so you're
Perfect.
welcome to come whenever you
Awesome.
want. Just give me a heads up. But from that standpoint, we really need to get you entrenched. in
Yes,
people
thank
here,
you.
and
I
think
would
that you
really
would
appreciate
love
that.
it.
I thank you so much.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank
and wait,
you. Okay.
How does everybody find you?
Gen Z podcast. So it's JENNZ podcast on Instagram or TikTok. TikTok's a little more unhinged.
Yeah.
I post a little more.
Well, that's
unhinged
okay.
content. Yeah.
I mean,
it's fun.
you need
it's like
both,
whatever.
right? The rule. You know what? I get popped more on TikTok than I do Instagram.
Like, what do you mean
sure.
popped?
Well,
Oh yeah, people are crazy. People
well-
are crazy on TikTok.
But I would figure that I would get in more trouble on meta platforms than TikTok. But I always get community guideline things.
Oh,
and you
I
can't
just meant
say that.
Okay,
and-
people
Oh,
are
are a
trolls.
little more,
Yeah,
yes.
on
well,
TikTok,
and I
they
think
say crazy
you,
stuff.
Yeah, and I think you can piss people off on TikTok a lot easier. I don't know. It's
it just
weird.
feels like more of a wild, wild west.
Yeah, I always get the hand slaps. Like
Yeah.
this was removed for community.
See, I never do that,
violation.
but I just feel like people are mean.
Really?
Meaner on TikTok.
See, and I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
So I can't.
Well, I'm starting
you
to laugh
getting
about
there?
it. Yeah.
Okay.
I have like, people would be like, oh, she's a 5. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Well, the funniest
Cool.
thing, and I'm sorry, we were going to wrap up.
Yeah.
I know you, but I will buy one of your hats.
okay. No, don't
'Cause
even buy it. I'll give you one.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, he's talking about, so I dated a guy. He told me my podcast was boring as fuck. I really appreciated the honesty. I did cry when he sent me that.
Yeah.
But then I laughed hysterically for days and I was like, that's actually the funniest shit I've ever heard. So I'm going to make a hat. So I made hats.
You
Your
need
podcast
to.
is boring as fuck.
And I mean, but what does that do? That still attracts attention, right?
Yeah, I'm
And
like,
no
yeah,
one's
don't
really
listen
gonna
to
agree
it.
with it.
It's
but,
boring as fuck.
but
it's, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
So,
just make it my whole personality.
Exactly. I appreciate you very
Thank
much.
you.
And you got to get out.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate it.